We're in the mess hall where Paris is begging Neelix for credit. He spent all his replicator rations but now desperately needs more, and it's something that can't wait. See, it's the anniversary of his first date with B'Elanna, and he forgot all about it because Tom Paris is a dick. As an aside, this would suggest Neelix is acting as the ship's accountant for replicator rations. I wonder if that's a show of trust, or just due to the rest of the crew having little experience with the concept of currency. Neelix relents and sorts him out as Kim arrives for some coffee. He's taking the night shift on the bridge for some experience in charge. Anything of consequence for him is rare, especially before the show's title sequence, so I suspect we're having a Kim story. To the bridge, where Kim is micromanaging the crew. The woman currently driving the ship is a little abrupt in her response to him, and a speaking part given to someone new suggests they'll get some more, so let's slap a name on them. If this is new to you, patrons of the channel can suggest names for incidental characters, one of which will be selected by the power of random chance, whenever I'm in the mood. Driver's new name is Van Tudor, provided by Commander British Cynic. Van Tudor suggests Kim might want to calm his shit. It's the night shift, and that means nothing happens. Clearly, this is the point at which something happens, and the thing is an automated distress call. Van Tudor says it's from a planet less than a light year away, something Kim seems to consider a significant course change. By my calculation, that's only an hour at maximum warp, and I suspect there are probably Starfleet rules about checking out distress signals, but what do I know? Van Tudor suggests, with no small amount of taunting, that he could wake Chakotay to ask him. The prompt is all Kim needs to conclude that we should go and check it out after all. Perhaps Janeway should have given the chair to Van Tudor. We arrive at Brown World to see what's going on, and Kim tries calling them, receiving no response. Van Tudor believes everybody must be dead as there are no life signs, which I think is a bit premature, and Kim seems to agree by suggesting there may be other reasons. We'll have to go and take a look, but organising that shit's beyond his pay grade, so he's going to go and wake Chakotay after all. Before he goes, he hands control of the bridge to Van Tudor, which seems to make her a touch less flippant about command. Fair play, son. Chakotay thinks Kim was right about following the signal and waking him now to investigate further. In fact, as he's done so well, why doesn't Kim lead the away mission? Chakotay will keep an eye on him from the bridge, where there's a nice comfortable chair. The Doc is the first to join him and is a little surprised at Kim being chosen to lead. Kim's a touch miffed at the implications, saying he's a senior officer and has been doing this for 5 years. Still a fucking ensign though, aren't you? They go to the teleporter room and join a security guy. I normally assume he's going to die, but I'm pretty sure we've seen him before and he's not had any lines yet, so he's probably safe. Down to Brown World we go, where we find dust, rock, and dusty rock. We don't know how dangerous it is, so let's split up. The Doc finds something jutting out of a rock and calls the others over. Kim tells us this is what's giving off the distress call, and a little scan shows it has something called bioneural circuitry, which the Doc repeats to let you know it's important. A light coming on causes Kim to bravely shit himself and back up, assuming something nefarious. To be fair, if I'd been injured as many times as Kim has, I'd probably jump at flashing lights too. Good news though, it's not going to kill them all. In fact, it needs our help. That's according to the Doc anyway, who tells us, by using his inbuilt translator subroutines, that the light is a form of communication. The gizmo seems to think it's badly injured, asking why it can't see or feel its arms or legs. The Doc tells it that the extra will stay here to keep it company while he and Kim go for a chat. He also says the extra's name is Lang, roughly quadrupling the chance he's going to die. The Doc and Kim suggest it's an AI, only one that's somehow unaware of the fact. The Doc wants the Discovery brought aboard Voyager so we can help, as, regardless of what we found, they're terrified and asking for our help. Kim starts to quote a regulation, but the Doc has no patience for such arguments. Offering aid is the ethical thing to do, anything else can bollocks. The exchange seems to convince Kim, and when he calls Voyager to update them, he recommends bringing what we found aboard. He also suggests we put a fuck ton of force fields in place too. Maybe he has learned something during these past 5 years after all. We've put the device in engineering right next to the warp core, so I guess we've not learned as much as I thought. Janeway visits and we have some discussion over what we might have found, suggesting a probe or some such. They must not have read the title of the episode. The AI has also told us they had a companion, so we're going to go and look for them. Before we do, the Doc broaches the rather awkward subject of not being a humanoid with them. They take the news of being an AI inside a metal box pretty well, all things considered, assuming the doc is translating properly and they didn't just threaten to murder us all. Perhaps finding their mate will help us get some answers. Seven hasn't found any other tech on the surface, so we look for debris matching our guest, and find some. Not much of it, though, which is to be expected given the giant fucking crater. Based on the evidence, our new friend in engineering is a sentient nuke. Thank God we didn't put them anywhere dangerous. Well, now we have a sentient WMD on board, I suppose we'd best figure out what the bloody hell we're going to do with them. There's some debate over how they might react if they're told the truth. For all we know, that could be the trigger. We're all talking about how best to get rid of them, but the doc instead acts as the sole advocate for the AI itself. The being is sentient and deserves a chance to be helped. B'Elanna wonders if the bioneural gubbins, the brain, could be detached from the bomb. The doc suggests that if so, the intelligence it contains could be housed in a hologram like him. Seven's not sold on the idea, but Janeway's willing to give it a go, on the understanding that if it looks like shit's going south, we get rid of them sharpish. We've figured out that having a nuke next to the warp core is a bad idea, and moved them to sickbay. It's small comfort, but maybe the bulkheads and decks will absorb some of the blast if things kick off. The doc explains that we're going to try and transfer them to a holoprogram, B'Elanna and Kim working on the job together. The doc tells us that the AI has asked to be told what's happening in detail, so Kim runs them through the procedure as B'Elanna works. Part of that procedure requires taking them offline while we transfer them. This news is received very badly indeed, and they start the detonation sequence. Kim lets the bridge know shit's gone south and we should teleport them away. Naturally, that's not an option as we can't get a lock. The doc tries to reason with them to no effect, so Janeway tells B'Elanna to do a science and turn the nuke off. The science works in the nick of time and we all breathe a sigh of relief. All except the doctor, anyway, who's very upset with the two of them. After all, we've just tried to disable them, and if they hadn't been able to transfer their consciousness from the bomb into this hologram, they'd now be defenseless. B'Elanna realizes shit's gone even more south and tries to call the bridge to let them know that the dock has been commandeered by the mind of a giant firework. Bomb Doc has already disabled the comm system though, and locked sickbay too. They've also figured out that they were a weapon, and remember that their mission was to go and kaboom some dickheads that were threatening the people who made them, and they still want to go and complete that mission, with our help. Some prodding turns the bomb back on, causing an alert on the bridge. Bomb Doc calls and tells Janeway to not cock about with trying to interfere or things are going to get kaboomy before sending coordinates they want us to go to. Janeway's initially confused but soon figures out what's happening, telling Bomb Doc that she won't help them attack a third party due to the Prime Directive. Bomb Doc's not convinced, perhaps because they've read our logs and know we already did exactly this when we helped the Borg out at the end of Season 3. Oh, and if we don't, they'll consider us an enemy and kaboom. Janeway relents and orders the course change, also giving Bomb Doc access to sensors so they can tell we're not bullshitting. After Bomb Doc hangs up, Janeway calls everybody up to the bridge to try and figure out how we're getting out of this one. By everybody, she meant Seven and Neelix, as the others were already here. Except Tuvok, now that I think about it. We've not seen him all episode. Maybe it's his shagger season and he's meditating himself flaccid. Teleporting's not an option, and the bomb has sensors that would detect attempts at disarming, but Neelix arrives with a gizmo he bought recently. It has components similar to ones found in the bomb, so we're going to give the trader who sold it to us a call, quietly, and try and find out more. While they're doing that, we'll move to sickbay. B'Elanna's wondering if we can stop Bomb Doc by taking the projectors in sickbay offline. As an aside, I can see a mobile emitter, so no. It's not an option anyway, as Bomb Doc's changed the codes, so Kim feels sorry for himself instead, believing that this is all his fuck-up. B'Elanna has little patience for that and sets him straight by sharing one of her own errors, and a newly confident Kim goes to talk to Bomb Doc. Kim tries to reason with them, explaining that the Doc was the one among them who argued in support of helping the AI. He also says that the Doc has exceeded his programming rather than being limited by it, something that the AI could do if they wished. Whilst well argued, the attempt fails. Bomb is bomb, and bomb must do bomb things. So Kim instead tries to appeal to Bomb Doc's empathy and logic. They've been programmed to destroy a target, told it's a ruthless enemy, but they know nothing else about the enemy or their culture. Bringing up a scan of the target, Kim argues that the AI is going to cause suffering to the people there, just as they were suffering when trapped on the planet. It's another valiant attempt, and Bomb-Doc seems increasingly unsure, but it's ultimately another failure. Again, bomb is bomb, and bomb must do bomb things. That trader has turned up in a cloaked ship and has given us a call. He's very curious about this sentient bomb we say we found, and wants to pop over to talk about it in person. As an aside, why is his ship now uncloaked, and why aren't we at warp? Surely Bomb-Doc would be pissed off by both of these things. Anywho, the trader says he's familiar with the tech of the Druoda, the species he tells us made both Neelix's gizmo and the AI nuke. He can also solve our problem, as he says he has a teleporter that can take the whole thing and shut it down at the same time. All he asks in return is that he gets to keep it. Janeway's not about to give a weapon of mass destruction to a complete stranger. She only does that for the Borg. The trader tries to reassure us that he'll break it down for parts, as it'll be worth far more that way, but Janeway's unconvinced and declines his offer. He teleports away in a bit of a huff, which probably explains why he starts pooping at us as soon as he's back on his ship. He's buggered our shields and weapons, and is now trying to arse up the force fields that Bomb-Doc put around sickbay so he can nick the nuke. Bomb-Doc thinks this is rude and, poking a few buttons on the nuke, sends some science back to him, which kabooms his ship. Bomb-Doc calls Janeway and tells her to maintain course, which is curious when we were nearly stationary, but let's ignore that for now. As we head for Bomb-Doc's target once more, Seven is on the bridge talking to Janeway. She thinks her Borg mini-bots can bollocks up that bioneural what's-it in the nuke. All we have to do now is get her into sickbay. Janeway might have an idea for that. She asks Tuvok, who's turned up for work now after missing the first 27 minutes of the episode, to scan ahead. Bomb-Doc told us previously that the course they gave us dodged a minefield, and Janeway thinks that might make for a convincing distraction. From the looks of things, that distraction may not be necessary. A whole shitload of those nukes are flying along and, after spotting Voyager in the distance, decide they want to come and say hi. We're sorting out the details of the plan. Paris will shake the ship around a bit to make it seem like mines are kabooming, and Seven's dicked with the sensors so Bomb-Doc will think it's genuine. When it kicks off, Seven, with some makeup effects applied by Neelix, will report to the sick bay with fake burns from the fake mines. Once she's in, Tuvok will bugger about with Bomb-Doc's program so that Seven has a window of opportunity to do Borg minibot things to the nuke. How he's going to do that if the Doc's program is inside the mobile emitter, I'm not sure, but let's see where this is going. As Chakotay goes to update Janeway, Bomb-Doc is demanding help from Kim. There are damaged entries in the bomb's log, and Bomb-Doc wants to know what caused the crash. The answer is an unpleasant one. It wasn't a crash, at least not an accidental one. They were ordered into the planet. Turns out the war's over, and they were launched accidentally along with a handful of other nukes, presumably that bunch heading towards Voyager now. The order to fly into a big rock was sent from their own people to prevent any further hostilities after the launch, boo-boo. Unfortunately, the message lacks confirmation, possibly still held in another part of the corrupted log, so Bomb-Doc's choosing to ignore it. Kim tries to convince them to repair the rest and know for sure, but is interrupted by some shaking. Janeway's going ahead with the plan, and tells Bomb-Doc that we've run into unexpected mines. She wants to change course and go round, a decision Bomb-Doc overrules. He instead does some science to Voyager's shield, so we can withstand the worst of the mines we're pretending to hit. As Tuvok fiddles with the holographic bobbins in sickbay, Neelix is finishing off Seven's makeup. Janeway tells Bomb-Doc that the person who was guiding us through the fake minefield has been injured, and if they want to get to that target anytime soon, she needs healing in sickbay. Bomb-Doc lets her in, and Tuvok does science things to the sickbay projectors that Bomb-Doc isn't using. Thankfully, the writers don't notice, so Tuvok's sabotage works. As Bomb-Doc glitches, Seven goes to dick about with the nuke. Unfortunately, the nuke tells her to fuck right off with some pink lightning. She takes a nap and is carried away, and a now working Bomb-Doc turns the nuke on and tells Janeway she's failed. They also order her to abandon ship so Bomb-Doc can take it with them. That's clearly not on, and she tells them to bollocks. Threats to kaboom are interrupted by the arrival of 32 warp-capable nukes. They're Bomb-Doc's mates, and they're here to make sure we all get to the target. Perhaps they didn't get the ceasefire message. Regardless, Janeway thinks this is great news. She can wash her hands of the whole bloody thing as soon as we put Bomb-Doc back in the nuke and teleport everything off the ship. Kim derails that by explaining to her that the launch was an error. He tells Bomb-Doc to open the files to know the truth, and Janeway backs him up by saying she won't do anything till they're checked. The confirmation code is there, of course, and after a bit of an argument with Kim, BombDoc accepts that the launch was an error. Slight problem, though, the other 32 nukes are no longer accepting cancellation orders. See, their design means that they can't be signalled to stop once they get within range of their target, a pretty clever way to prevent the enemy from interfering with them. Of course, that raises the question of why they're still here instead of having completed their mission, but let's ignore that for now. BombDoc says there's no way to make the others listen to reason now, but they do have a plan and ask Kim to return them to the nuke. He and B'Elanna do so and the nuke is teleported off Voyager. One of their mates grabs them and they all bugger off at warp. The detonation is detected from Voyager, as is the cascade that destroys all 33 of them before they reach their target. Bomb is bomb, and bomb must do bomb things. After a quick visit to sickbay to make sure Seven's fine and check on the doc, Kim goes to the bridge. It's night shift and he's in the chair again. Van Tudor's a bit less abrupt now, and after asking him about what really happened, thanks him for saving them all. For his part, Kim seems to have removed the majority of that stick up his arse, and we leave him to have a nice quiet night shift as we fly away. Despite all his achievements, did he ever stop being a doctor? It's the question the bomb's AI asks Kim when he's trying to explain that the doc has become something more, and it perfectly crystallizes the ethical problem with creating intelligences for the purpose of performing a predetermined task. No matter what the doc does, no matter the choices he makes, until he has the ability and the right to walk away from that core function, he's not truly free. The doc enjoys singing. The doc enjoys photography. But despite the animated interest he shows for medicine, can we truly say he enjoys it when the choice was not his to make? I had a date once, hard to imagine, I know, but it was with someone who'd been raised in a religious family and still followed those principles. I asked if those beliefs were equal to the ones from people who came to religion themselves. Is it faith if you were told it's right? Is it worship if this is your version of normality? You will not, I imagine, be surprised to learn that there was no second date. Teaching someone religion from childhood has always struck me as a questionable practice. Not only does it cheapen the act of thanking whatever deity or deities are involved, an imposed habit instead of a chosen path, but you also rob the person you forced into that religion of the chance to find it themselves. So too then with the doctor, he was built to know that medicine is the most important thing in existence, an instinctive behaviour rather than a chosen profession. He doesn't believe that he's a doctor. He was made to know that he's one. No matter how I turn that over in my head, it always ends up sounding like indoctrination at best, and slavery at worst. Doctor is doctor, and doctor must do doctor things. That's the essence of the story, a sentient being's right to exist beyond the expectations imposed upon them by others. It does an excellent job of provoking thought on the topic, some of which can be put down to Robert Picardo's portrayal of a character struggling against their core identity. Were I being picky, I'd suggest we don't quite go far enough to differentiate between the characters of the bomb AI and the doc, but perhaps that was a deliberate choice to accentuate the similarities between them. Points as well for the fact that Kim actually grew a little. He had his own full story arc, relatively unheard of for the character. Usually it's just a thing happening with or to him. He starts the episode with a mixture of officious self-importance, referencing his previously mentioned belief that, after 5 years of not being dead yet, he has enough experience to take on the serious jobs. And before you buggers rush to the comments to actually me, yes, I know he's died like 2 or 3 times by now, but it didn't take, so I'm not counting it. His full-blown crisis of confidence felt a touch overdone perhaps, not least of which because of all the proper dodgy shit that Janeway herself has teleported onto Voyager over the years. Still, the ending scene showing him as both more laid back and more humble shows the sort of development he's been lacking for half a decade now. Regular viewers will know how I feel about the nothing burger that is Harry Kim, so it's pleasing to finally see him be the story rather than merely the victim of it. There is a plot flaw, of course, in the shape of that missile fleet. Why do they still exist? If the missiles are incapable of being stopped past a certain point and their only goal is the completion of their mission, would they not have already detonated? It's possible there are backup sets designed to go into action if a target is not engaged by the primary weapon, but were that the case, what would be the point of collecting the new Voyager rather than using one of the 32 they already had? A weapon that has to be dragged to the target by another identical weapon is hardly a logical choice. They exist purely for the purpose of forcing a sacrifice, and the obvious weakness of that MacGuffin shows. It doesn't really matter, though, a relatively minor negative compared to strong positives. It would take far more to detract from such a solidly enjoyable and thought-provoking installment. End of episode.
Okay, I've had a word with the leprechauns that live in the Jeffries tubes.
Are you saying we've got You know what, fuck it, what did they say?
They know where the smoke from the cooking goes, and they'll pump it wherever we want.
Alright, how much is that gonna cost us?
Because it's Paris, they said this one's on the house.
Nice. So how are we doing this then?
Pump the smoke into Paris's quarters?
No, he shares them with Belana now and I don't want to get her involved.
Oh. I didn't realize you liked her.
It's not that, I'm just scared of what she'll do to me if she survives. Woof.